911, where is the emergency? Take a deep breath. What's going on?
Somebody was in the house. I got hit really hard. I don't know.
In the quiet, upscale suburb of Keller, Texas, the image of a successful blended family was shattered by a single gunshot in the early hours of October 13, 2011. What began as a frantic report of a masked intruder quickly unraveled into a labyrinth of staged evidence, shifting alibis, and a staggering $650,000 motive. At the center of it all was a master manipulator turned murderer. Gregory Wayne Williams was born on March 14, 1971, and was described as a bubbly and energetic individual. He was a successful self-made computer engineer who operated a computer programming company out of his home. Those who knew him well said he was a genius and a talented salesman, and he had made a lot of money over the years to show for it. In 2006, Greg met Michele Marie O'Brien online, and the two quickly hit it off. According to Michele, their first meeting was love at first sight. She called him her knight in shining armor, and those who knew them well said he treated her like a queen and put her on an untouchable pedestal from day one. They had a lot in common as they were both divorced more than once with kids. Michele had 2 boys and a girl, while Greg had a teenage daughter named Taylor. They also shared a deep interest in the rougher side of intimacy, which is how they met online. In fact, Greg was so committed to these private pursuits that he even opened an exclusive members-only club in 2008 to explore them further with Michele. That same year, they married and had a daughter named Michaela. Greg even brought Michele into his successful IT consulting business and put her in charge of bookkeeping. By this point, Michele was living the good life. Greg had paid for breast implants and hired a maid and a nanny to help around the house. Greg's business was also continuing to flourish, and in 2011, he made $850,000. From the outside, it was the picture-perfect life for Greg and Michele. But on October 13th, 2011, all that came crashing down. At 4:40 in the morning, Michele made a frantic call to 911, pleading for help, saying Greg had been shot by an intruder.
I got hit really hard. I don't know.
10 minutes later, officers arrived and found Greg deceased in the bedroom from a single gunshot wound to the temple. At the crime scene, investigators discovered that the gun used to take Greg's life, a .45 caliber handgun, and the wrench used to strike Michele had been wiped clean of all fingerprints and DNA. They also noted that the crime scene appeared to have been staged and there was a strong smell of bleach. Michele was quickly brought in for questioning and claimed that she was sleeping on the couch with her daughter Michaela when a noise woke her up.
I heard a sound. I get up and I hit by something. I could see it was a nail in dark stuff, dark clothing.
The lady on the phone kept telling me, go outside, and I kept telling her I can't go outside. I got the baby in the house, and the ambulance. I didn't want her.
The only problem with this story was that the scene looked staged, and K-9 units could find no scent of an intruder. Plus, neighborhood security footage showed only a newspaper delivery person entering the gated community that night. After a 5-hour interrogation, Michele recanted the intruder's story and claimed Greg instead took his own life.
Point blank, either by what I've got to see, either his is self-inflicted and you covered it up, or there's potential that he may be involved.
I didn't know it hurt my head, and he did not hurt himself. There was a man in my house.
Basically, what information we're getting right now doesn't match up with the scene. Okay.
I'm telling you, keep asking. I'm telling you what I know.
Those facts and everything, Michele, don't add up. Either his is self-inflicted and you covered it up, or there's potential that he may be involved. Again, all I have is what I have. That's all I can say. One of the two things will happen. one of those two things, Michelle. So,
No, no,
okay. And again,
he won't find the house because I didn't do anything to my husband.
okay.
I did not hurt my husband, and he did not hurt himself.
Okay.
There was a man in my cell.
You did it. You covered it up. Just tell me.
He said,
Huh?
he did. I couldn't let her know that. I took some Clorox wipes. I used Clorox wipes all over the house, and I wiped the gun with the blanket that he had right there, and I set it down. And I had to figure out what the hell to do at that point. In order to make some sense, I had to have an injury, and I just sent myself, and I sent myself too hard.
What's that, Rent?
It's a rent. I went like that, thinking I'll just have a little fruit, and that really backfired bad.
She claimed she staged the scene to protect her 4-year-old daughter from the trauma of knowing her father took his own life. However, the medical examiner proved this story false when he found that the shot that killed Greg was from a range of 12 to 24 inches away, making it impossible for Greg to have pulled the trigger himself. Investigators found the second story just as unreliable as her first story and were sure Michele had murdered her husband. However, without enough evidence to arrest her for murder, she was released the following day. As they dug into Greg and Michele's marriage, they learned it wasn't so picture perfect. Not only was he known for having a hot temper, but he was also a habitual steroid user. He was described as a narcissist, but so was Michele, and the family described their relationship as a contest of narcissism. Greg was aggressive, while Michele used manipulation to get what she wanted. She even convinced him to buy her a frozen yogurt shop called Blueberries. Greg's daughter, Taylor, and Michele didn't get along. Michele had accused her of slipping drugs into her coffee and claimed she even attempted to poison Greg and Michele's young daughter, Michaela. Michele made this claim after being hospitalized for an overdose of benzodiazepines and opiates, which investigators later determined she most likely took herself. Unfortunately, though, Greg believed her and sent Taylor to a drug rehab facility. However, Taylor's mother, Kathy, saw Michele for what she really was and called her a, and I quote, money-grubbing piece of crap. Michele claimed Greg despised his ex-wife, Kathy, but in reality, they were very cordial with each other. Michelle's own sons even turned against her. They accused her of not only cheating on Greg during their marriage, but also on her 2 previous husbands. They said she was always manipulating men to get what she wanted, and even going as far as to accuse her of dabbling in prostitution. Michelle's own sister also wasn't shy about telling investigators about her sister's constant lies. Investigators then spoke with her ex-common-law husband, John, who said that while they were together, he found receipts in her purse for whipped cream and cherries, along with a note about a birthday card for Greg, which was proof enough for investigators to believe the affair accusation. It meant she was cheating on John with Greg. Then came the financial information. Investigators discovered that Michele had drained the couple's savings of $110,000, leaving only $1,000 in the bank account, which is pretty insane considering he had made $850,000 in the first 10 months leading up to his death. On paper, it appeared Greg was a millionaire, but in actuality, he was broke. It didn't make sense how they could afford a $4.5 million dream home that they were set to close on the day after the shooting, until investigators discovered that Michele had forged bank statements claiming they had $143,000 in a non-existent bank account. Then they came across a possible motive: 3 life insurance policies totaling $650,000 that Michele stood to gain after Greg's death. However, she needed money quickly and sold her frozen yogurt shop called Blueberries on Craigslist for $50,000. Come to find out, the shop had been a massive drain on their finances. It's believed that the night before the house closing, Greg had discovered Michele's reckless spending and decided to cut her off, which led to his untimely death. She also sold the client list from Greg's computer company, DFW IT Pro, for $8,000. In late December or early January, she tried to claim one of the 3 life insurance policies valued at $150,000. Thankfully, the insurance clerk Googled her name and immediately called the police instead of cutting her a check. 3 months after Greg's death, in January 2012, Michele was arrested near her home in Flower Mound, Texas, and charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and filing a false police report. Her bond was set at $85,000, allowing her to bond out shortly after her arrest. She then formed a relationship with her oldest son's best friend, Gene Wallace, who was also her fitness trainer. Gene worked at Get Kettlebell Fit with Michele's son, Andrew. Upon being told about the relationship, Andrew completely cut Gene out of his life. On October 9, 2013, she was offered a plea deal that would allow her to plead guilty to 2 lesser charges of tampering with evidence and deadly conduct. She accepted, claiming she wanted to get back to her daughter Michaela as quickly as possible. Even though she was set to be sentenced to 18 years in prison, she was hoping she would only serve around 2 years and 4 months before being eligible for parole. She then shocked the court that same month when she turned up pregnant with twins by Gene, or at least that's what she told everyone. This led to her formal sentencing being postponed until April 2014. The pregnancy was later determined to be a lie. Michele's sister said that Michele always used the pregnancy story to get what she wanted from men. Meanwhile, Michele faced serious backlash when the court obtained footage of her interview with the true crime TV show 48 Hours and saw that she was still denying the murder even though she had accepted the plea deal. This infuriated the judge overseeing the case, especially since Michele had blamed Greg's murder on a mystery person on national TV. She even implied the mystery person was a family member.
If you're guilty, then stand up, speak up, and get it out. And don't play games with yourself, with your lawyers, or with the system.
Are you, in fact, factually guilty of that offense?
No, I'm not.
I can go on, Judge. Depending on your ruling, I will...
If you're not guilty of tampering, if you're not guilty of deadly conduct, the answer to that question is a trial by a jury of your peers.
The judge then recused himself from the case, stating he had become a witness to her potentially false statements and perjury. Her defense attorneys also stepped down at their own request. Her original indictments for first-degree murder and tampering with evidence were then reinstated. It was an interesting turn of events, but according to Michele's family, this was all part of her manipulation because she truly believed she could win her case. In May of that year, prosecutors successfully argued that Williams was a high flight risk, and with her now facing life in prison, the court revoked her bond, and she was placed back into custody until her trial. She also had multiple bond violations while out. She was required to wear an ankle monitor, but her son Andrew testified that he saw her remove the device and put it in her purse, and that she bragged about being able to take it off in the shower. The probation officer noted that the monitor recorded 0 movement for 20 to 26 days at a time in late 2013. Investigators also found proof that she had gone on a secret beach vacation with Gene to South Texas. She was then caught working as a waitress at a strip club when she was supposed to be home on bed rest for her fake pregnancy. During the trial, it was revealed that in January 2013, her son Andrew had gone to the police about his mother. He said that in the days after Greg's death, his mother pulled him aside and told him she had an idea to shift the blame to Greg's ex-wife, Kathy. She asked her son to have friends of his buy an extra-large sweatshirt, wear it while firing a pistol to get gunshot residue on it, and then plant it in Kathy's car. He said she approached him again a week later, and upon finding out he hadn't done as she asked, told him to forget about it and she would figure it out herself. Over a year later, she spoke with him again and said that if the ex-wife frame job didn't work, they should blame it on Lee because, according to her, he suffered from mental issues. That was the breaking point for Andrew and the moment he went to the police. Her son Lee also testified and called his mother a, and I quote, pathological liar who had been lying to him for as long as he could remember. He told the jury, if her mouth is moving, she's lying. Other family members told of her long history of faking medical conditions. Long before the fake twin pregnancy, she had lied about having cancer, lupus, and even a brain tumor. She apparently did this for sympathy and financial gain from relatives. Her first husband testified that Michele once falsely accused her second husband of trying to murder her during their divorce. He said she had a pattern of using extreme accusations to gain leverage in legal battles. As for her defense, they stuck to the story that Greg took his own life, but in the end, nobody was buying it, and on September 29, 2014, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. The following day, she was sentenced to 60 years in prison and 10 years for the tampering charge, and the judge ordered them to be served concurrently. She will not be eligible for parole until around 2044, when she'll be around 74 to 75 years old. Greg's mother had these final words to say to Michele. Greg loved and trusted you with his life and business, and he was devoted to his family. Now he won't be able to see his daughters grow up. Michele thought she was the smartest person in the room, but in the end, her own vanity was her undoing. She traded an 18-year plea deal for a 60-year reality check, all because she couldn't stop talking. And just when you thought it was all over, there was one more shocking twist. 10 months before Greg's murder, on December 20th, 2010, his brother-in-law, Brynn Fletcher, was found dead, with a gunshot wound to the head. Brynn worked for Greg at his home-based computer engineering and sales company, GW Solutions. According to his wife, Michele, who was also Greg's sister, Brynn worked intense 16-hour days. At one point, he worked at the club Greg had opened in Dallas. On the day he died, Brynn was reportedly on a business trip to Waco, Texas, using a company pickup truck to conduct business for the company. When he failed to return home, his wife became hysterical, and police were quickly notified, not by his wife, but by Michele Williams. She reportedly made herself the primary contact with dispatch, and while on the phone, suggested he might have taken his own life. At 4:35 p.m. that day, his truck was found after someone called and reported it as suspicious. 1 week after his body was found, they ruled he took his own life. His family, however, believes his close working relationship gave him access to sensitive information about Michele's financial activities, which they suggest may have been a motive for murder. They believe he realized Michele was spending all of Greg's money behind his back and was planning to expose her. Since Michele couldn't risk Greg finding out, they suggested she lured Brynn to the secluded spot and killed him. Michele then convinced Brynn's wife to quickly have him cremated before she could even see the autopsy report. There were some witnesses who had come upon the truck before the authorities and provided some very crucial information about the scene. According to them, they saw no blood or visible brain matter, which would be inconsistent with him dying from a close-range gunshot. There were also reports and suggestions by Greg's family that Michele was seen near the location or was unusually knowledgeable about where the truck was located before it was officially found, though this has never been legally proven. His family believes she manipulated the investigators by being their primary point of contact and immediately suggesting to them that Brynn took his own life, ultimately steering the investigation in that direction. Unfortunately, police have no interest in reopening the case, claiming they need strong evidence of foul play. Regardless, the family continues to insist that Brynn was murdered. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments below. As of March 2026, Brynn's case remains officially closed.